Alright guys, running it back with another replay. On this one I'm going to be doing it's Norsca versus Vampire Coast. And, you know, I figured this would be an interesting matchup when I saw that my opponent had picked Vampire Coast. And I was sitting here with Norsca thinking of what I could be doing. My opponent did not bring what I thought they were going to bring. As you can see here, I brought some of the Miststalkers. They've got stalk, they can kind of hide, keep away from the Vampire Coast range pressure until you see Depth Guard come out. And then you can send him in to sunder the armor and do a bunch of damage. And I figured since it was Grove of Slaughter that I'd see more Depth Guard than I did, but my opponent brought a very different and very interesting build, honestly. He brought 2 Rotting Leviathans and was playing a very, like, rush-heavy style with that, and it presented some interesting challenges, and it really went to show the power of Norsca's ability to reposition on the battlefield with all of their elements, honestly. Really incredibly quick faction, lots of good tools to be able to isolate and overwhelm positions that your opponent has, which I think makes them so incredibly strong. I mean, they're one of the best Domination factions, quite frankly. And so, anyways, I'm going to be coming in here. In addition to the Miststalkers, I've just got a bunch of Marauders, an Ice Wolf Chariot, which I wanted to see if I could get to use running through the back line, but my opponent didn't really have a back line, so it was a little bit difficult for me to be able to jump from target to target. I got tar pitted a bit, so maybe not great in this matchup. Beast of Tashnar, just to kill any like animated Hulks and stuff. They do pretty good damage against them because they have, you know, frenzy and ridiculous melee attack, and the bonus versus large just makes them a menace to stuff like that. Some Marauder Horsemen coming out for my first summon, you know, wanted range pressure, because, hey, I figured, you know, I'd need something to poke in on these Rotting Leviathans. You know, they're not the most ideal thing in the world, but they're something. Count Noctilus for my opponent, the 2 Leviathans, and just a bunch of zombies. I mean, tons and tons. And he's going to the middle with them, just going to be holding there. Over here on the side, you can see the Night Terrors coming out. Really great unit. Excellent to throw out here on this side objective and just crump whatever comes their way. They do a good job of getting rid of regular hounds. The Beasts of Tashnar are pretty good against them, but still suffer against the anti-infantry bonus that these guys bring to the table. So you really need to get a proper isolation on them if you're going to be able to deal with them. Out here, I've got the Miststalkers and my Marauder Champions posting up over here. I didn't see anything over here. I was running my Ice Wolf Chariots over just to position in case my opponent did have some stuff over here. But I figured that most of it was in the middle here, because I could see the unit numbers that he had. I didn't know where the one remaining unit was. I didn't know if it was over here, and then found out right about now that, yeah, there they are. A Pit of Shades coming in, a little greedy for my opponent. I saw it in time and managed to dodge with the Horsemen and mostly dodged with the Marauders. And I'm going to be repositioning over here because my opponent does have a ridiculously strong force here in the center, and that's just not going to be a good fight for me to take just yet. My plan was to force him to have to reposition something over here, either Noctilus or hopefully Rotting Leviathans, wanting him to chase me, really. You can see over here, I'm just posting up with all of my forces, and you can see how quickly I'm able to reposition, while my opponent is just now starting to move Count Noctilus over here. He really wants to hold this center point and the side objective, and he does have a decent force over here. But being a little lax with the Night Terrors. Wraith Storm coming down, and you can actually dodge this, I found out, by just, you know, clicking around, moving back and forth, doing a pretty good job of avoiding it. I tried to catch Noctilus here with the Marauders, but they stopped up for some reason. I had them charging, and they just didn't get in and actually pile on top of him, which really, really was unfortunate for me. So I commit the Norscan Warhounds to try and catch him too. I just don't want him getting in here while all of my ranged elements are picking through the Night Terrors. And I was trying to keep him as far away as possible so he couldn't pop any heals on him. You can see here, a good Pit of Shades comes in and is really going to just do a number on these two bunched up units. A bit of a mistake on my part, but at the end of the day, not that big of a loss for me because I am just destroying his two Mourngul units over here. You know, they've got the hunger and have some decent passive healing on them when they're in melee, but with all of these ranged elements, I mean, 4 units just absolutely shredding them, and they're gone already. Dead, captured the objective. Good summon. Probably could have been done directly on top of these guys and made it a little bit harder for me to evade with them. But now you can see out here, my opponent's bringing in the Bloody Reaver Deck Guard. And, you know, if it had been regular Depth Guard, I wouldn't have been afraid to throw my Marauder Horsemen in there. They would have died pretty quickly. But they would have blocked these guys off for, you know, a good few seconds to let me get these guys away. But with the fact that they're the anti-large variant, these Marauder Horsemen would have just charged in and died immediately, and then it would have been a complete waste. So I decided that I was going to pull back with them and just commit to trying to finish off these deckhand mobs and then getting out of here, because now you can see the pressure's really on. Scurvy Dogs coming out. Rotting Leviathan, just chasing all over the place. Dodged another Wraith Storm, which was really nice for me. Only a little bit of damage on Wulfrik there. And the healthier Wulfrik is, the longer he's in this battle, the more utility I'm going to be able to get out of him. Which is really the goal, you know. But as you can see, I'm running out of here. I unsummoned one of the Marauder Javelins to get the refund, because, I mean, I didn't want to lose the value for no good reason. Iceworm Marauders and the other Marauder Javelins are just going to get killed, you know. And down here, you can see my Fimir Balefang. He gets caught out a little bit, and this was a scary spot for me. If my opponent had been able to swarm him a little more effectively, I would have been in a much worse position. But overall, that fight, it went a little bit in my favor. I had a value lead by this point. Killing off the two Mournguls was huge, huge, huge value. Even if I was, you know, tied in terms of actual damage value, the battlefield control that gave me was immeasurable. Here, I pop a Cascading Fire Cloak so that my hounds can tear apart these Scurvy Dogs and not take too much damage in return, because Norscan Warhounds will lose the Scurvy Dogs in a straight-up fight just because the crumbling and the unbreakable nature of these guys just makes them ridiculously powerful. But yeah, they bail the Fimir Balefang out, and he's going to be able to reposition around here, and he can do it pretty quickly. I mean, pretty quick. 57 speed is nothing to sneeze at. Over here in the middle, you can see I'm committing finally into this big blob fight. I'm not afraid. You know, I took a little bit too much damage on these Skin Wolves, but I wanted to force my opponent to react away from this edge. I wanted him to start bringing stuff back over here to the middle so I can maybe dive back on this if I got an opportunity. You can see I've got my units here ready for the pounds. But my opponent's not really going for it. Good Sea Fang coming down, tearing apart these guys. They do get heals. I'm just going to negate a lot of that, but you can see just how much stuff I've got in here, man. Sundered armor on this Rotting Leviathan, he's going to get picked apart by all these Skin Wolves that are on top of him. I've got some armored ones here. I did tech to bring one armored Skin Wolf. Just because there are, you know, if my opponent had gone like gun line with like the pistol variant of the gun mobs, they would have been a little bit more resilient to the shooting in that circumstance, and I would have brought them out as my first Skin Wolf summon. But that's not what ended up happening, so I just brought the regular ones out first and really went heavy in for all of these Skin Wolves to control the field. Just such a quick, effective unit. You can see here, this poor Rotting Leviathan has Wulfrik in on it now, and with his combat stats, I mean, he's just so strong. I mean, that's 778 weapon damage, man. really doing a number on this guy, you know, and it's still got 120 armor despite the sundering. Really strong, really powerful stuff, but I am really picking through the beast slowly but surely. You can see it's just taking chunks at this point. Over here, Count Noctilus summons deckhand mobs. Beasts of Tashnar got caught up, had to run them in to charge these polearm mobs, trying to kill them. Good burning head goes down, roasts a good few of them out. They got a pit of shades dropped on them, and I had to charge them in. They got picked apart decently, but they're pretty healthy, all things considered. 57 models. Look, they can get one more good charge in on something and do some pretty good damage. My opponent committing Morn Ghouls into this center fight. I repositioned a couple of my Skin Wolves away from the really tattered, rotting Leviathan. I figured that the Miststalkers, the Wulfrik, and the Skin Wolves would be able to finish this off. And you'll see, they get through it pretty quickly. And I needed something over here to save these Marauders, keep them fighting on these deckhand mobs. And you can see how quickly Morn Ghouls get shredded by Skin Wolves. The Skin Wolves do take quite a bit of damage in return, because the Morn Ghouls just hit so hard. I mean, it's such a powerful unit. But it's going pretty well for me over here in the center fight. You can see that the army for the Vampire Counts is pretty much gone at this point. Just some tattered units, a dead Leviathan body here. And here comes the decisive engagement for me. Noctilus is finally in a position where he's completely caught out. My opponent's got too much sitting over here, not enough in the center here to support Noctilus. And Wulfrik with the Cascading Fire Cloak and all of these buffs, Hunter of Champions and everything. Noctilus has got, you know, no melee defense, not in a very good position, personally. And fighting on top of these Marauder Champions is going to give me the buffering I need to be able to survive any counter blows he's throwing. Over here, the Night Terrors jump on top of these Marauder Champions, and I was a little slow to seeing it for a second, but these guys held really well. You can see how much damage they've put on a target that they're not necessarily designed to fight. And these Morn Ghouls are expert units against infantry models, but these champions hold so well. That's why these guys are so valuable. They're just an amazing unit, almost Zargard levels of durability, honestly. I mean, their leadership is high, good armor, the physical resist from the rage ability, you know, doing me wonders in that fight there. And the Skin Wolves come in and just karate chop them, you know, finish them off, keep them from getting any more value. Marauder Javelins coming back in, and another unit of Marauders, sending them over there to secure that side. But over here, Wulfrik and the Famir Balefane were able to kill Noctilus, and my opponent threw in the towel at that point. Well played to him, but I think in the Norsca matchup, going for this rush-style build is really just playing into Norsca's hands. Norsca just has so many good answers to Morn Ghouls, animated hulks, rotting leviathans, just everything you could possibly want to bring get countered really heavily by Norsca. I think Depth Guard really needed to be brought in, and not the Bloody Reaver Depth Guard. I mean, they're a good piece to have, actually, I think, in this matchup. They do provide a good anti-large punch, like a good unit to maybe sweep the backfield. But as Vampire Coast in this matchup, you have to bring bomber mobs to kill the Marauders. If you can do that, then you can put yourself in a winning position. And I think you have to do that. You can go with a more rush style build, but you do need monster killing elements that are ranged. You know, bring some handguns. Shade Wraith Gunners might be pretty good. Just because they provide a discouragement effect. So I think that's really the way you want to go about it. They are a little vulnerable to Ephemer Balefane with the Flaming Sword of Ruin, which you saw I cast down here at one point. And then, of course, you know, Burning Head is always good against Vampire Coast. So, you know, a few things that my opponent could optimize, but that's really the way that I would think you would want to go about it. So looking at his build, I would say drop the Leviathans. I mean, you can see these guys just got no value, man. I mean, 869 on that one that was in combat for most of the game and just got absolutely shredded. Count Noctilus is a good lord choice. He's pretty effective, but I think that the fleet admirals right now are just stronger. Their casting ability that they have, the Black Periot, gives them ridiculous ability to recharge their reserves, which is a big deal for vampires. You know, I mean, you can see in vampire counts, the Forbidden Rod Necromancers just make them unstoppable. And so I think until if it ever does get patched, which I don't necessarily think it needs to, the Fleet Admiral is your best way to go, quite honestly. The Night Terrors are good, but you can't send them in and overextend them at all because, I mean, you could see just how squishy they are against all of these skin wolves, man. I mean, these ones paid for themselves, were ridiculously healthy. I mean, just look how cost-effective these guys were. 758, 920, 660, and all of them are still pretty healthy and had more to give. The Miststalkers did really well despite not having any really great targets to armor sunder, you know? But still provided good value and did knock down the armor enough to be able to provide a little bit more damage against this Leviathan with the, you know, non-armor piercing damage that skin wolves provide. But with the anti-large, you know, they're always going to be landing their strikes against this thing, so any extra damage is gravy. Just adding extra value, making it more difficult for my opponent to do anything. These guys almost paid for themselves in that one engagement against the Night Terrors and the other Morngul unit, and that opening engagement on the side objective. Really good and excellent appearance from them. Marauder Champion on the middle that I had, 98 kills, 500 value, and nearly full health. Again, as Vampire Coach, you gotta prioritize killing these guys. You really do. They will hold for forever against deckhand mobs, and kill them pretty decently in terms of, like, actual DPS. They'll chip them down pretty fast. Icehorn Marauders got good value for the 2 times that I brought them in. These guys are underrated, in my opinion. You can put them on a side objective with some hound support, like Beasts of Tashanar and other stuff, and they can fight for forever. They can really force your opponent to grind against them, which is going to give them the advantage because they're going to be healthy the whole time. They're not going to wear down at all. They're going to keep their stats pretty high, and over the course of a long Dom game, that's a huge thing. I think Perfect Vigor is one of the most sought after, what's the word? I guess, traits that you would want on any unit in this game mode, because it really, really helps you in that long, grindy style fight. But yeah, Wulfrik, good value, 2300 on him, killing Noctilus and dropping a couple good Sea Fangs. Only 1000 on the Bale Fiend. Really, he was there to drop Flaming Sword of Ruin and a couple of Burning Heads, and those did get pretty good value. Roasted out some of the meat that this rotting Leviathan was sitting on. Good value from these guys. These are the ones, I believe, who fought. Yeah, they are. They're the ones who fought the Night Terrors off on that side objective. You can see they killed 6 of those models. 900 or 700 value. Really good stuff. Had plenty of distance to go still. Honestly, I need to do some testing and see if they just straight up win against the Night Terrors, because I mean that's pretty hopeful stuff, honestly. I mean, surviving the charge from the Night Terrors is big, and then over the course of a long grind, they might be able to just pick them down entirely. But yeah, you can just see how strong Norsca is as a faction in its totality. Cost-effective units across the board, and Vampire Counts are probably one of the better matchups for them. You know, my opponent tried to do something different with the Rotting Leviathans, probably trying to scare off all of the non-ITP elements of my army, because I don't really think anything here other than the Skin Wolves with their Frenzy active and Wulfrik and the Balefiend and the Famir are ITP. Everything else is pretty vulnerable. The piece of Tashnar too, but everything else vulnerable to getting terror routed. That'd be really bad for me, good for my opponent, because he's got lots of good elements to go in and, you know, do some damage. If I were to say anything, cut the Death Shriek Terrorgeist. It's too expensive and not necessarily what you want to be bringing against Norsca. You know, Fellbats provide their value. They can shut down Norsca's Marauder Horsemen and stuff and stop up charges. So bring, you know, 2 of these, probably the right amount. 3 Scurvy Dogs is a good number. Just needed shooting. You know, Shade Wreath Gunners, like I said, for the discourage and the damage. And really commit to protecting a small, dedicated, and very powerful missile core would be the best way to go, probably. You know, forcing me to try and dive on top of them and, you know, forcing me into bad engagements where, you know, maybe like the Bloody Reaver Debt Guard are able to actually shine. Because, you know, my opponent brought them out and they never did anything. I just ignored them the whole game. And, you know, he really needed to be bringing them to the middle fight if you were going to be putting them anywhere. You know, because they're a pretty strong independent unit that can fight without a lot of magic support and would be able to do good work against everything that I had. Probably even Marauder Champions, even though, you know, they're not dedicated to killing those type of a unit. Their AP and their melee attack is high enough to chip through these guys. It'd be a bit of a grind, and probably they'd take more damage than would be really worth it. But with good support, you could probably make it work. But yeah, GG. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this one. Peace.